Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a magical childhood dream for millions. But behind the fairy tale colors lies a much colder ending than imagined. Some die alone, some sink into depression. Some are remembered only as a faceless Oompa Loompa. Who died, and what did they leave behind for the world? Let's explore the truth behind the golden ticket. Let's find out. Christopher Lee as Dr. Wilbur Wonka. Christopher Lee played Dr. Wilbur Wonka, the cold-haunted father in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, at the age of 83. Despite his short screen time, he left a deep scar in the audience's mind, like a childhood wound that never healed. Born on May 27, 1922 in London, Lee's life contained darker chapters than any of his films. He was a real-life spy in World War II, fighting alongside special forces against the Nazis and watching his comrades die in their final screams. But the trauma of war was nothing compared to the artistic tragedy that followed him for 60 years, when Hollywood cast him as a villain because of his terrifying appearance. "I can read poetry," he once said. "I can sing opera, but they only see Dracula." The sharp eyes and sad voice that served him in the war have now become an artistic prison with no way out. He was cast in 7 villain roles in 1 year, and once burst into tears after filming when a director told him his eyes were scarier than the script. Later, Lee turned to metal music to scream things I'm not allowed to say on screen. It's not a passion. It was a challenge. Christopher Lee died on June 7, 2015, at the age of 93, of heart failure and respiratory problems. His estimated net worth was around $25 million, but his true legacy is priceless. The voice still echoes throughout the fantasy world and the villains that chilled the world to the bone. Even though he spent his whole life wishing to play the role of an ordinary man, he was never chosen. Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka. Gene Wilder, who played Willy Wonka in the classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, brought to life a charming and mysterious version of Wonka at the age of 38. The film, with its dreamy colors and hidden life lessons behind each candy, has become an icon for generations, and Gene Wilder, with his faraway eyes and half-real, half-imaginary smile, is the soul of the film. Born June 11, 1933, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Gene Wilder, born Jerome Silberman, endured 2 failed marriages before finding ultimate happiness with Gilda Radner, a talented but frail comedian. They married in 1984, but within 5 years, Gilda was diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer. Wilder was by her side through every painful moment, from chemotherapy to despair, from hope to despair. She died on May 20, 1989, leaving him in a state of mental paralysis that lasted for years. He stopped performing comedy, rarely appeared in public, and once wrote, "Gilda's death not only robbed me of my wife, but also robbed me of my light." The grief was so deep that it could not be erased, and from that loss he founded the Gilda Club, a place to ensure that others would not die alone like her. On August 28, 2016, Gene Wilder died at the age of 83 from Alzheimer's disease, a diagnosis he kept secret for the last 3 years of his life. Why? He didn't want his children, who had loved him like Willy Wonka, to be saddened by the sight of the man who had guided them through the world of candy fading away. His net worth was estimated at $20 million. But Wilder's true legacy lies not in the numbers, but in what he left behind. Liz Smith as Mrs. Georgina. Liz Smith as Grandma Georgina, the petite but warm grandmother in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, joined the film at the age of 84, leaving a deep impression despite having few lines. With sad but gentle eyes, she is the last cozy corner in Charlie Bucket's simple house. Born on December 11, 1921 in Lincolnshire, England, Liz Smith's life is a series of silent sadness that few can imagine behind the gentle smile on the screen. Her husband died early. She raised 2 children alone in poverty, without a home. without support, doing all kinds of jobs from secretary to babysitter, kitchen assistant, just to have money to buy milk and blankets for her children. At the most miserable time in the winter of 1966, she was evicted from her house for not paying the rent and had to move to a small, damp, unheated room in the bitter cold of London. Here, she quietly swallowed her tears so that her children would not know that their mother had just been abandoned. More than 40 years later, no one invited her to act in a movie. It wasn't until she was 50 that a TV director happened to spot her acting talent in a local community play. It wasn't a fairy tale twist, but the result of half a century of global neglect. Liz Smith passed away on Christmas Eve, December 24, 2016, at the age of 95, a peaceful end to a life lived quietly through the storm. Her estimated net worth is around $4 million, but her real legacy is a reminder that it's never too late to start, and that sometimes the smallest supporting roles can touch audiences' hearts the deepest. Jack Albertson as Grandpa Joe. Jack Albertson plays Grandpa Joe, the loving grandfather who accompanies Charlie on his journey to the chocolate factory in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, at the age of 64. The role not only appealed to young audiences but also transformed the image of a poor, magical old man into a symbol of hope for millions of children. Behind that image, however, Albertson's life was a hidden tragedy. Born on June 16, 1907, he grew up poor, working odd jobs before finding his calling on the stage. But just as he was about to achieve the rare success of winning the most prestigious acting awards of all, Oscar, Tony, and Emmy, fate struck a fatal blow. In the late 1970s, he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. Quietly, he began to live a double life, performing comedy during the day and curling up in pain at night. He kept his illness a secret from both his colleagues and his fans. In his final scenes in Chico and the Man, he was in so much pain that he couldn't stand for more than a few minutes. When he learned that the cancer had spread, he told his wife only one thing: "Don't cry, I need to finish acting before I die," and he did. Death became his invisible partner in the final years of his life, and that spirit made his passing a glorious tragedy. Albertson died on November 25, 1981, at the age of 74, after a 3-year silent battle with cancer. His estimated net worth is around $5 million. But the image that remains is of Grandpa Joe jumping out of bed, elated by a golden ticket, even though in real life he was too weak to walk down the stairs. An actor who continued to act until his last breath. Denise Nickerson as Violet Beauregard. Denise Nickerson brought life to Violet Beauregard, the famous gum-chewing girl who turns into a giant blueberry in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, when she was just 14 years old. That vivid role catapulted her into the ranks of childhood movie legends. But Denise's real life was darker and more bitter than any candy in the Wonka factory. Born on April 1, 1957, Denise was a promising child star, but the spotlight quickly faded after her teens. She left Hollywood in 1978 and took a quiet office job, but quiet didn't mean peaceful. In 2018, she suffered a severe stroke that left her immobile and requiring 24/7 care. But the biggest blow came in 2019, when she deliberately overdosed on prescription drugs at home. In a moment of utter despair, she fell into a coma, developed pneumonia, suffered repeated seizures, and lost all mental response. Her family, emotionally and financially exhausted, made the agonizing decision to remove life support after she expressed a desire not to be resuscitated. They even had to start a GoFundMe campaign just to cover the hospital bills. This wasn't just a death. It was the long decline of a child who once made the world laugh. Denise Nickerson passed away on July 10, 2019, at the age of 62, surrounded by her family. Those who still tried to smile, knowing that Violet would never be human again. Her estimated net worth is only about $500,000, but her story of a childhood angel lost in the storms of time is a haunting reminder that the brightest spotlights can cast the longest shadows. Rusty Goff as Oompa Loompas. At the age of 23, Rusty Goff took on the role of one of the first Oompa Loompas in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, with his white face paint and signature green hair, delivering one of the most iconic and mystical musical sequences of childhood for generations. Born on October 30th, 1948, Rusty Goff was a man of both talent and limitations, which he never chose. His height led Hollywood to virtually box him into non-human roles throughout his life, from a creature in Star Wars to a goblin in Harry Potter and countless comedic roles. "I was never allowed to be a normal person on screen," he once said. Behind the smiles and the makeup was a lifelong tragedy, being seen as entertainment rather than a real actor. While he was always cheerful at fan events, Rusty understood that he was part of an industry that needed you, not to tell your story. His roles, no matter how memorable, did not allow him to fully express himself. Rusty Goff passed away on March 12, 2020, at the age of 72. The cause of death was not released, but his family confirmed that he had been in ill health for months. His estimated net worth is around $1 million. He remains a beloved icon in the cosplay and fantasy film communities. But perhaps his best moments came backstage, when he donned his Oompa Loompa costume once again, to visit a 5-year-old leukemia patient singing Oompa Loompa Doompa Dee Doo in his own shaky voice. He said it was the most complete performance of his life. Gunter Meissner as Arthur Slugworth. Gunter Meissner plays Arthur Slugworth, the shadowy villain in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, at 45 with his razor-sharp eyes and cold, unforgettable face, a symbol of doubt, control, and moral defiance. But the real tragedy lies not in the character he plays, but in the life trapped behind that face. Born April 18, 1926 in post-war Germany, Gunter had the face of a villain, a stereotype that defined his career of playing murderers, Nazi officers, and historical ghosts. In more than 70 films, he was never allowed to cry, love, or show tenderness because his appearance was deemed too cold and harsh. At one point, he became so desperate that he turned to painting to express the sadness he was never allowed to portray, filling his house with self-portraits of himself as a father, a teacher, a good man, roles Hollywood never offered him. He once bitterly wrote, "I am not a monster, but cinema taught me how to act, so that the whole world believes I am a monster." Gunter Meissner died suddenly on December 5, 1994, at the age of 68, of heart failure, just before filming a small play for which he had just accepted, the first role in his life that was not a villain. His net worth was estimated at about $1.5 million. But tragically, his whole life was confined to the eyes of a cruel person, although his heart belonged to a man who only wanted to be loved, if only once on screen. Diana Sowell as Mrs. Bucket. At age 41, Diana Sowell played Mrs. Bucket, Charlie's gentle, loving mother, in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. She left a lasting impression with her soothing lullaby, "Cheer Up, Charlie," and her hopeful, gentle eyes. Though only a supporting role, she contributed to the emotional heart of the entire film. Born June 19, 1930, Diana Sowell was the embodiment of a quiet artist. She never pursued fame or sought out flashy leading roles, instead devoting much of her life to small plays and charity work, often performing at hospitals for veterans and the elderly. However, few people know that for many years, she faced isolation in the industry, constantly being overlooked by producers for being too modest for mainstream cinema. No scandal, no controversy. Diana was forgotten because of her kindness. Her greatest moment came in a single role. Then the spotlight quietly shifted in another direction. After that, she lived a private life, but there were also many nights when she sat alone under the dim spotlight, still singing "Cheer Up, Charlie" to herself, a way to escape obscurity. Diana Sowell passed away on October 19, 2018 at the age of 88, peacefully, but also quietly, like someone who never sought the spotlight. Her estimated net worth was only about $1 million, but her portrayal of Mrs. Bucket, a mother with no magic, only unconditional love, remains a quiet symbol of sacrifice. David Kelly as Grandpa Joe. David Kelly, who played Grandpa Joe in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 2005, brought to life a wiry, witty, energetic, and emotional old man when he took on the role at the age of 76. Despite starring alongside Hollywood's biggest names, it was his infectious smile and warm voice that rekindled the golden ticket spirit in the hearts of audiences around the world. Born on July 11, 1929 in Dublin, Ireland, David Kelly took to the stage at the age of 8. But what's remarkable is not how early he began his career, but how long he remained in the shadows before he was noticed. During the 1950s through the 1970s, he scraped by as an unknown extra, worked as a commercial artist to make ends meet, and raised 3 children in a 1-bathroom apartment shared with 3 other families. He once fell off stage due to a broken stage light, broke his hip, and needed 28 stitches, but was back performing 2 weeks later. Rejected countless times for not being handsome enough for an older man, he simply smiled and said, "Then I'll be a strange old man, but one that people remember." And he did, in a unique and irreplaceable way. David Kelly passed away on February 12th, 20 at the age of 82 from an undisclosed illness, as if he wanted to keep his final pain private. His estimated net worth was around $3 million, but more importantly, he left behind a simple truth. Be happy, be kind, and live long enough for the world to eventually realize you're worth seeing. Tim Brooke Taylor as the computer scientist. Tim Brooke Taylor appeared at the age of 31 in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, as the computer scientist, a small, uncredited role that was symbolic of a world entering the technological age, and a face long associated with British comedy. Born on July 17, 1940, Tim was a pillar of British comedy, best known for The Goodies and I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue. But because he brought laughter to millions, the tragedy of his final days is all the more devastating. In 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic swept the world, Tim was still working, still appearing on the radio, still emailing friends. But just days later, the virus pushed him into critical condition. He died alone in an isolation room without family by his side, without a final goodbye. Comedian Barry Cryer choked up as he spoke through tears. A man who had once made the nation laugh had no one by his side when he took his last breath. That's the real horror of COVID, not just the disease, but the silent death. And for Tim, the cruelest thing of all, he was gone when the world needed his laughter the most. Tim Brooke Taylor died on April 12, 2020, at the age of 79 from complications of COVID-19 during the UK's national lockdown. His estimated net worth is around $2 million. But his greatest legacy is the memory of an artist who devoted his life to the BBC, to theater and to laughter, and then died in a world that was strangely quiet. Leonard Stone as Mr. Beauregard. Leonard Stone played Violet's boastful father, Mr. Beauregard, in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, at the age of 48, portraying an overbearing, ambitious father, a cruel mirror of a materialistic society. Born on November 3, 1923, Leonard had a long career of more than 120 roles, but behind the spotlight was a long battle with metastatic bone cancer, which had been silently eating away at his body for years. When he was diagnosed, he did not tell his colleagues, did not delay his schedule, did not rest. He continued filming in a pain that only a strong injection could alleviate. A co-star recalled how he collapsed after a scene, then stood up, smiled, and said, "Don't let the director see." It was a kind of self-destructive endurance, not for glory, but for the belief that the role must always be completed, even if it meant breaking apart inside. No one ever heard him complain, but in his diary there was only one line: If I'm not acting, I'm just a sick person. Leonard Stone died on November 2nd, 2011, just one day before his 88th birthday, from complications from cancer, in the very house he refused to leave until he could no longer stand. His estimated net worth is around $2 million. But what people remember most is the image of an actor who quietly left on his own 2 feet, never taking a single day off,